Alrighty, so hello everyone, bonjour tout le monde, and welcome to this panel discussion focused on the importance of experiential learning opportunities in preparing students to enter the workforce and contribute effectively to the economy. I will be passing it over to our moderator and panelists in a minute, but first I'd just like to help situate you. We are streaming on YouTube Live from Concordia University's fourth space, which is located on unceded Indigenous lands in Tiohtià:ke, Montreal. And as caretakers for the lands and waters we are meeting on, we'd like to extend our gratitude to the Kanien'kehá:ka Nation for their teachings about the earth and our relations. At Fourth Space, we work with our university community to mobilize knowledge by co-creating daily activities such as today's panel conversation that invites Concordians together with external partners and audience members to examine key ideas and initiatives in development here at the university. So welcome all online and in the space. A quick note about engagement. Hopefully there'll be time for questions and comments. If you're in the space itself in real life, please raise a hand and we'll get a microphone to you so that the folks on Zoom can hear you. And if you're on Zoom, the Q&A is activated, the chat is as well. We invite you to put your questions directly into the Q&A, making our moderator's life a little bit easier to have one place to look. So to get us started, it's my pleasure now to pass the floor to our Concordia President and Vice Chancellor, as well as today's moderator, Graham Carr. Welcome.
Super. Thanks very much, Anna. Good morning, everybody. It's terrific to see you all here. Thanks to everyone who's joining us online as well, and welcome, a big welcome to all of our panelists today. So it's really a pleasure to have the opportunity to moderate today's session on experiential learning. And I'm going to dive right in. You know, experiential learning has been shown demonstrably to provide a higher capacity for critical thinking for students. Also gives them the opportunity to more successfully apply the knowledge that they've retained, particularly in complex situations, and provides a very structured context and reflection that helps participants link their experiences in the workplace with what they're learning in the classroom, and in that sense, deepening their ability to understand and to apply and implement the things that they've learned. But in order to be successful, experiential learning programs such as the ones we offer at Concordia, they depend on sustainable partnerships with other educational institutions, but in particular with the corporate sector, with the public sector, with the not-for-profit sector, with communities. And it's those relationships that, of course, create the opportunities for students to have an authentic workplace experience. It's those relationships that create over time the meaningful context in which students can flourish and understand culture beyond the university and lead to their success upon graduation. There are obviously many different forms of experiential learning. There's cooperative education, there are internships, there are research work, other kinds of work experiences, community service learning. So it covers a wide range of co-curricular activities. But today in particular, we're going to focus on the work-integrated learning piece. And we know that there are many benefits to work-integrated learning, benefits actually for all of the stakeholders in work-integrated learning, for the students, for the employers, and for society at large, because work-integrated learning is a way in which the next generation of students and citizens can develop next-gen skills, 21st century skills that include and advance their employability. It allows students to develop new networks, that can become relevant for them over the course of their career. Obviously, it provides a source of income to students, and that's always important, particularly for students. When I think about Concordia context, where many students are juggling a lot of family responsibilities as well, and so the kind of comfort that paid internships, paid co-ops provides can take some of that financial pressure away from their daily lives and allow them to focus on academic success. And we know we have the data points to demonstrate that happens. And in another way, what experiential learning does is it allows students to experiment. It allows students to experiment with different kinds of work contexts, different kinds of employability opportunities to allow them to figure out where their passions lie, what works best for them, what they're most interested in. Now, going as far back as 2016, which seems ages ago, the Business and Higher Education Roundtable, or BHAIR, announced that it had a really ambitious goal, that it wanted 100% of students in Canada in their first degree, certificate, or diploma at a post-secondary institution in Canada to benefit from some form of meaningful work-integrated learning experience before they finished school. And in our particular contribution to that goal, which I think is a laudable goal, not just for BHAIR, but for Canadian and Quebec society as a whole, as I'm sure many of you know, this past August, Concordia made a commitment. We believe we're the first university in Canada to make such a commitment, that every undergraduate student registered starting this fall in 2022 would have the opportunity for a pathway through their academic program, regardless of what program they are in the university, to attain experiential learning through co-op, through internships, through other EL pathways. And we think this is a huge statement on behalf of the university, that it's going to be a major recruitment advantage for us with students who are looking to develop additional skills and have additional opportunities. And it's going to create tremendous potential for us to develop partnerships with, as I said, the public sector, the private sector, not-for-profits, without whom experiential learning as a goal can't be achieved. And in 2024-25, Concordia will celebrate its 50th anniversary. And our goal is that by 2024-25, new undergraduate students coming to university will not just have one EL opportunity, they will have two through their programs before they graduate. But maybe that's enough of a plug for what we're trying to do at Concordia, and we're really here to listen to the panelists today. Some of you know, if you were here, this is the second in a series of panels that we're doing on experiential learning. And then the first one, we really were focusing on questions of labor shortage and how experiential learning, work-integrated learning could help address that. Today, we'll also be talking about how experiential learning opportunities really contribute to better preparing students for the labor market. Although there is a demand for talent at the moment and a relatively low rate of unemployment, the challenge of entering the labor market still remains a challenge for all graduates. And we want to be able to draw on the knowledge and expertise of the panelists to talk a little bit about how that transition from university to labor market can be made most effective. So let me now introduce our panelists today, and I'm going to go from my immediate right to the far end. And first of all, introduce Angela Mondu, who is the president and CEO of TechNation. Welcome, Angela. Bienvenue à Montréal. Karna Gupta, who, in addition to being an illustrious graduate of Concordia, is currently member of the board of directors of Export Development Canada, has had a very illustrious career nationally and internationally in many different sectors. Val Walker, who is the president and CEO of the Business and Higher Education Roundtable, And joining us today is Alexandre Gagnon, who is vice-président Travail et Capital Humain of the Fédération des Chambres de Commerce du Québec. And we're really grateful to Alexandre for stepping in place of his boss, Charles Maillard, who is in Quebec City today for the opening of the Legislative Assembly. So merci d'être venu, Alexandre. So let's turn to the questions. And Val, I'm gonna begin with you. BHARE has estimated that in the current context, already something like 50% of students in Canadian post-secondary institutions are already participating in some form of work-integrated learning. And over the last 3 years, from 2019 to 2022, your organization has been directly responsible for helping to create nearly 40,000 opportunities for work-integrated learning in Canada through close to 4 dozen partnerships that you've established with the support of 150 or so post-secondary institutions and employers across Canada. A recent report that BHARE commissioned found that almost 75% of employers stated that participation in BHARE programming helps strengthen their talent pipeline. And 80% of employers reported that they gained access to resources, human resources, that help fill demonstrable skills gaps within their organizations. Now, good news for you, this past September, the Honorable François-Philippe Champagne, the Minister of Innovation, Science and Industry, was sufficiently persuaded by BHARE's success that the Government of Canada is investing more than $17 million in your organization with a view to creating over 22,000 new work-integrated learning opportunities across Canada in the future. Can you just tell us specifically, Val, what you believe that federal investment will allow BHARE to do going forward, but in addition to what it will do for BHARE, more importantly, what it's going to do for Canadian students, what it's going to do for Canada's employers?
Yeah, I'm happy to, Graham. And first of all, thank you for the invitation to be here. I'm happy to be up here with such amazing panelists and with such an esteemed moderator. So, and it really is wonderful to have a chance to come and talk a little bit about the work that the Business and Higher Education Roundtable does. First and foremost, we do it and we're as good as we are because of the strength of the people that work on my team, as well as, like you said, the 150 partners across the country, all of whom are committed to that same big goal that we are, which is to get every student some valuable work experience before they finish school. And congratulations to you and congratulations to Concordia for embracing that goal and putting in place real measures to get there. I think that that's one of the big things that we are working on, is to help people set big, bold, audacious goals, and then to make sure they have the capacity and the follow through and the funding where needed to deliver on those goals. So to your actual question, we're so excited. I don't know if you guys heard specifically in Graham's lead-in, but the investment that we received from the federal government earlier this year is about the same amount of money that we received in 2019. And if you listen closely to the numbers, the first time we had a goal of achieving about 40,000 placements for students, and we came perilously close to doing that. There was a small global pandemic that threw a couple wrinkles into that plan. This time, and on purpose, we were a bit bold in going to say, we're committed to that 100% goal. And this time we're requesting the same funding envelope, but we're going to do about half as many. It's not GR 101 doesn't necessarily say that that's the best way to go in and make the pitch, but we kind of said a bit boldly, if you're serious like we are about 100% of students, you need to understand that the closer we get to that 100% target, the harder it is to place those students who are equity deserving groups, or who live in rural or remote areas, or who need accommodations because they need to work full time while going to school part time. If we mean 100%, the closer we get to that goal, the harder it is. So they went for that. And so we have more flexibility now and more money, frankly, to make sure that we can really do the hardest to do well. And that is a huge advantage for Quebec and for the rest of Canada, as well as our partners. The other thing which is new is that we have a separate bucket of funding that goes specifically to build the ecosystem and to build sustainable programming and capacity within the companies, so that really we can eventually put ourselves out of the will business, because the tools and resources that employers need to provide quality experiences to students they have, and they've built themselves, so that they don't need to keep coming back and looking for stipends or other things that would get people into the market and understand the value of will, but would be, not necessarily sustainable over the long term. So we're thrilled, and we're really excited to work with you guys and others as we go forward.
Super, thanks for that, and congratulations on that, on making that point successfully to government about the challenges around the edges of work integrated learning. And in the first panel, we talked quite a bit about the challenges of disadvantaged groups in terms of benefiting from work integrated learning, but also the advantages that those groups can bring to the workplace. But it requires additional thought and additional measures sometimes for that to be successful. Alexandre, if I can turn to you right next. Currently, as I said earlier, unemployment levels are pretty much at record lows, certainly here in Quebec and elsewhere in the country. And nevertheless, the Canadian Chamber of Commerce has said that there's still a skills gap between between graduates leaving university and the needs of the workplace job market. And according to the Chambre de Commerce, work integrated learning is crucial to bridging those gaps and allowing young Canadians to develop long-lasting, successful careers. When you think about the Quebec situation, and you're in such a great position to talk about the Quebec situation, representing the Chambre de Commerce across the province as a whole, is it your reading that there is a skills problem, that graduates are not being equipped with the right skills when they leave university, and in your conversations with employers, is it the case that employers believe that there's a difference between the students who have an experiential learning experience and those who don't?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Yeah, of course, there's a difference between the students doing an integrated work integrated learning opportunity in front of the other students. Students coming back from schools are having a great pack of skills. They learn a lot of things and they know how to do it. But being in the workplace, we tend to find that some soft skills are missing. Yeah. And the students that's been part of a program and had the opportunity to go in the workplace and know how things are done, and how all the great things I learned in school will really help me to find my place in the workplace and how to collaborate with our teammates. We can have good opportunities with in schools on how to collaborate, but nothing is better than to do it in a workplace. So without having the data to back it, I think it's an evidence that students passing by a opportunity will less likely have a change of heart for his first job, because he already has a glimpse of it, and he already find, oh, that's what I will do once I have my diploma. So, and that's a great aspect and something employers are looking forward, because they want to have the employee, the students, that will stay for a long time, and that he will be in the right chair, and he knows what job he wants to do getting after school. So it's, if I can pack it up, it's not that they don't have the right skills. It's more that a work integrated learning opportunity help to test how these skills are used in the real workplace environment. So to respond to your answer, are they having all the skills? Most of them, yeah. Oh, they are having great skills, but they need to have the opportunity to express it in a complex environment like a workplace.
Yeah, I really like the nuance on that, because it's about having skills. It's also for students recognizing that they have the skills, and recognizing that the skills that they're picking up in the classroom have adaptability elsewhere. And I think we talk a lot about skills acquisition in the university, but sometimes I think we take it for granted that students recognize what those skills are that they've acquired, and they don't get a chance to actually see how it's applied until they move into an environment. So thanks for that, Alexandra. Angela, can I turn to you?
Yeah.
Okay. So TechNation does an amazing job bringing together Canada's technology sector, governments, communities, hoping to allow all of those stakeholders to work together and evolve new technologies for the benefit of society. And TechNation has been committed, has recognized for a long time the value and importance of preparing students for the workforce of the future. And in fact, you're currently in discussions with us here at Concordia about how we can develop some new innovative models for the EL experience. So you're talking with partners all the time. What do you hear from the partners in your network about what their needs are from graduates? And can you also, because there's another important element, particularly in the technology sector, that I think we don't want to lose sight of here. One of the unique features of this sector is that it's also an incubator for startups. And that's another really critical form of experiential learning, which we sometimes don't pay sufficient attention to. So can you address those 2 points, what you're hearing from your partners about the skills that they need, and also where you see the whole startup community as part of the experiential learning experience?
Okay, sure. So first of all, thank you for having me today. There's a couple of reasons why I'm here. One of them is because my son went to Concordia and he has not left Montreal. So I had to come back and see him. Concordia has scooped him up and I don't think he's coming home. The other reason is my personal belief in experiential learning. And there's this saying where the best made leadership training around the world happens in military officer training programs. They are 100% about experiential learning, and sometimes terrifying experiential learning. And I happened to, at the age of 22, go through 4 months of really deep, dark experiential learning in boot camp, a military officer's boot camp. And I cannot tell you how powerful that was. 4 months took me from being a graduate to catapulted into a team and leading a team as a second lieutenant with 73 people in it. So I'm a huge believer of this whole program and this whole process. In terms of what's going on right now in the market, and not just in the tech sector, but every single sector, and I'll say there's a couple of trends that are happening right now. One is that the need for technology skills is ubiquitous. It's across every single sector. That means we need to tap into tech adjacent skills, not just software coding and engineering. We need to tap into anything and everything that everybody has and offer that in a tech environment, whatever sector that is. The second thing is the demand, despite the recession that might be looming and some of the layoffs and everything else that's going on, has absolutely accelerated our ability around the world through universities, through WIL programs, et cetera, to get talent into place. So this is another reason why experiential learning and WIL is absolutely critical, because it is going to help accelerate the talent from just an education and theoretical place to this actual learning that Alexandra touched on. What am I hearing from our partners? 1 year ago, we did a survey from 300 of our tech sector members. So everybody from the Googles and Microsofts to AI scale-ups in Canada. And there is an absolute crisis inside the tech sector for talent in one key area, many areas, but specifically cyber. So here we are in a world where you have the world of defense, and then you have the world of cyber becoming an absolute threat everywhere, skyrocketing demand. So our members came to us and said, we have a crisis in Canada and around the world. How are we going to come together in this, as an association? So a cyber task force with the top priority of cyber talent readiness has now become our top priority. So much so that last week I sat in one-on-one meeting with the basically the Deputy Minister of the Canadian Cyber Security Centre, Sammy Curry, to come up with a strategy on how we're going to work together and collaborate with government to deal with this. So I think in terms of what I'm hearing from members, one is couple of things that aligns up with what Alexandre said. We need specific skills in tech from a cyber perspective, but we also need the breadth and depth skills of someone that might have 2 or 3 years working in business, the ability to think critically, to think creatively, to problem solve. So some of those softer skills that Alexandre was talking about as well, which is certainly what Will and EL can provide. The other question was about acceleration.
Well, the other question was about startups.
Right.
And the role of startups in experiential learning, because the tech sector is such a fertile ground
Absolutely.
for startup incubation. So,
right. So I can just really quickly on that one, in terms of our programs, Graham, one of our mandates is to get the talent through our Career Ready program, which is, we've had $240 million in the last 4 years put into our organization. And we have a great leader here, Brett, who helped place that, and tens of thousands of students. 90 million of those dollars are over 12,000 small, medium enterprises, startups, scale-ups received the benefit of that talent. It is unbelievably necessary. I led a scale up myself. I couldn't get talent fast enough. I was competing with Google, and I had co-ops and interns coming through that organization, not wanting to let them leave the organization. Like, please don't go. Can we keep you for 8 months? We're still doing that in Tech Nation. So that's probably all I have to say about that. The program is just absolutely instrumental to accelerating, enabling the scale-up world and the startup world.
Yeah, that's great to hear, Angela. And I think most universities in Canada have innovation incubators on campus right now. They're some of the most exciting places to be, and it's great to see students coming together. Often it's one of the things that the innovation incubators do is it draws students together who wouldn't otherwise meet with each other, because they're trying to start a company, they're lacking skills, they need to reach out to people in a business school or people in a design arts program, and once they can find that common language of communication, then the startup journey can really take off. I think we'll come back to some of those points about the demands of the anticipated demands of industry, despite a looming recession a little bit later on. But Karna, I wanted to turn to you. Because obviously, as this conversation reveals, strengthening the relationships between industry and post-secondary institutions is one critical, it's not the only critical element, but it's one critical element of work-integrated learning. But sometimes there's a tension between academia and industry around the design of academic programs. And I know, as a university president, that there are faculty members who sometimes have concerns, legitimate concerns about the autonomy of the institution if industry is or increasingly government is making investments in graduates and wanting to influence the development of curricula. But by the same token, as universities, we're socially responsible institutions. We want our graduates to be prepared to enter the workforce of tomorrow and to be knowledge ready. So working with industry to understand their needs seems important as well. Now, you've had a truly extraordinary life in industry and in various businesses, and as I said at the outset, in many different national and international contexts. I'd just be curious to hear your thoughts about that industry-university partnership and how those sectors can best evolve together to prepare students for success.
First of all, thank you for inviting me. It's really a pleasure to be here, Graham, and also want to congratulate you and the Concordia team for announcing the experiential learning to be in all programs. That's fantastic. Maybe I'll start answering the question by framing the problem. The problem statement is important in this case to what you're trying to solve. So I'll give you from an industry point of view, when I was running companies both here or in US, what we saw with the young students coming up. So typically what we have in Canada for last several number of years is a co-op program. And we all use students from co-op program in our companies and everything else, but it's very transactional. Mm-hmm. So the students join from co-op program, primarily engineering, and they come in and do a project which is very well bounded from, at a start date and an end date and a very defined deliverables. What happens is that student really not learning the work environment, what's needed to be successful downstream. And the company also is not vested in the student to hire back. So these are transactional element of the co-op program. It has done great jobs, prepared the engineering students for workforce, but what about the rest of the students? So that was a problem, defined, over the years, I probably had over 100 co-ops go through the various companies I've run. And I can probably turn around and say maybe 3 I hired. So that's not a good success rate for somebody who's using the co-op program. So that's the first problem I look at. The second area of the problem is what I see from the boards I sit in today. I sit in the companies of software and advanced manufacturing. The kids without any co-op coming in, it's a 3 to 6 months of training program. So I'll give you a direct example. If you're in a advanced manufacturing of medical devices, for example, you want mechanical engineers, but I don't think the mechanical engineers coming out with understanding of what's needed in advanced manufacturing in a system that has a clean room attached to it with different type of R&D process, quality, the whole medical device, the meeting the regulations and everything. So they have no understanding. It takes 3 to 6 months of training to make that student productive. So what that means is nationally, our productivity rates are low. So if you look at any of the OECD indicators, in all of them, whether our research, whether our productivity, they're trending the wrong way for the last 10 years. And large part of it is we have not calibrated the educational system to the fast-moving industry needs. So my hope, as you go through and you guys are designing it, my fellow panelists are deeply involved in this, the whole work integrated learning modules, the engagement of industry at an onset is very important. And it's also important so that the students learn how to work in a sustainable fashion in that company. They may move around, students always have an opt to choose the company they want to work for different reasons. I had a recent conversation with a couple of senior HR folks in various companies. The students will often look for, especially the younger generation today, it's a more value-based engagement. They like the work, they like the job, and the value often gets in the way of whether should I work for this company. But the learning process needs to be designed through the WILL program, and I think it's the right design that what you're looking at is having the industry involved, so the students are vested, the companies are vested, and it's a learning process where they know how to work, and when they come out, they're productive individuals and helping the industry and the country move forward. Yeah. So it's a design issue, that's my hope. So the framing the problem statements to me is very important as you kind of look at the answers here as to what we're trying to solve for. So that's probably, the way I would respond to your question. That connection is very important, but it needs to be calibrated to what the needs are.
Yeah, that's really a lot of interesting points in there, Karna. So on the design issue and moving away from an approach to work integrated learning, which, to use your terms, is transactional, and trying to create something that's more meaningful. And in some senses, if I hear you correctly, it seems to me what you're describing is the challenge of trying to enable students not just to be job ready, but be industry ready, to understand sort of beyond a particular task or occupation within an organization what the larger culture and needs of that organization are. And I you know, you've used the same language as Angela, talking about acceleration, that things are moving faster and faster. So how do we cope with that? Just if I can make a little plug here, I think as organizations and universities are thinking about new models for work integrated learning, we've just been testing one pretty successfully with PwC recently, where they've been hiring a cohort of 25 to 30 of our students in their financial crimes unit. And they've opted for a cohort so that they could create a pool of talent that can be ready for potential employment and create that sort of esprit de corps and sense of teamwork. So that, you know, that's not every organization or every company is going to necessarily be able to operate at that scale or need to operate at that scale. But to me, that illustrates a different approach to the design thinking. What's the formula for work integrated learning that could best fit the needs of each organization? A small medium enterprise is going to have a different set of needs from a large multinational. So this is about customization, and it's about how the stakeholders can work together to achieve that customization. Maybe, Karna, just before moving away from you, I also want to just say on a personal level that you've demonstrated your own commitment to experiential learning, because recently, Karna gave more than $325,000 to Concordia's campaign for Concordia. And this was to honor your brother's legacy in supporting equity and diversity. And you created a bursary, the J.D. Gupta Bursary for Women in Finance at our John Molson School of Business. And it funds undergraduate bursaries for two successful women candidates each year. But a key part of that is an internship component. And you were also in being motivated to give this generous gift to the university, trying to tackle another aspect of the work integrated challenge, which is the gender imbalance in the workforce, and in some sectors of the workforce in particular, and in this case, the finance industry. And I was wondering if you could just share with the audience today and with your fellow panelists, you know, some of your thinking around the motivation for the gift, but also what you hope the outcomes will be in terms of addressing gender equity.
No, thank you. So I got to answer this question with the stories, and there are a lot of younger folks in the audience here. So I'm going to start with, this is pre-internet days and pre-social media when I went to school. So, you know, the whole, you know, gender inequity, you really picked up what you saw in the classrooms and everything else. There wasn't as much of a talk and, you know, conversation around it in any kind of a common place. So our personal story was, and as you notice, my name ends with an A, Karna. So when I graduated, finished my MBA, in those days there was no email. You had to Royal Mail the applications for job to, you know, 30, 40 companies around Montreal, from Domtar to everybody else, and you hope somebody will pick you up. And when I mailed my those 40 letters, every letter that came back with Miss Karna Gupta was a rejection. So that kind of tells you there is a systemic issue involved here. So my name, A, kind of threw off whether it was a male or a female. They didn't even bother reading the reference letter, which the Dean Brink wrote. It clearly says, hey, he has worked in this area, he has done that. So didn't even get to that part. So the systemic gender imbalance was my first realization when I applied for a job. And actually my wife was also a Concordia graduate. we used to bet whether it would be a yes or a no based on how the letter response came in the Royal Mail. If it was miss, when the money went in, it's a no. Anyway, so that's kind of the first kind of you realize that it is embedded into the social fabric, the whole systemic disbalance of the gender. Now, both my brother and I grew up in a family. The gender equity was a big part of our growing up, and I'm not going to go into the big story here, but that's kind of how we grew up. And unfortunately, he passed away in 2020, and he was head of retail banking for Standard Chartered Bank, which most people don't know. It's a UK bank. They pretty much have banking in all countries except Canada. And so he was head of retail banking. Most of Africa and Asia reported to him. And he was a big believer in youth and gender support. And we both supported the gender balance, through our work life. So when he passed away, unfortunately, in 2020, it was an honor for me to kind of set this up as a bursary in his name and to further the cause that we need to kind of deal with the gender issue as the kids graduate. They need to be educated. Now, big part of the gender discussion we have today, and maybe a couple of years ago, was the intents are clear. We want more women to be in senior roles. We want more women to be on boards. We want more women to run companies, but you have to fill the pipeline. If the pipeline is not filled, you would not have that. So the only way you fill pipeline is to enable, the women to go into the areas where they're not represented. Engineering, finance. So that was the whole motivation of setting up in finance, just because my brother happened to be a banker, that, we should, that was a way to kind of demonstrate my way of kind of creating the legacy. So it is not only a legacy issue, it's a issue that I've seen play out, even though I'm not, I did not suffer from it. I mean, I got a lot of rejection letters, but you can see how embedded the gender imbalance is in the workplace, and that needs to be dealt with.
Yeah, that's a pretty revealing anecdote to begin with, and you're right. I mean, there are certain sectors, and finance is definitely one of them, which have had a huge gender imbalance over the years, and we need to find tools to address that. So thanks for sharing on that point, Karna. Val, if I can go back to you, and I'm gonna come back to the recession question, the recession theme here now. Forecasts are that the job market's going to get tighter and tighter because of the recession. There is an immediate labor shortage at the moment. There are unique placement opportunities for students, but it's hard to forecast whether that will sustain itself in the short medium run. Experiential learning covers many things. What's your view about how experiential learning, and this kind of goes back to Karna's point earlier, to be designed or redesigned to develop skills that university graduates need to take them into the work world, particularly if we're entering into a period of economic uncertainty?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and I just need to first say, thank you for your commitment to gender equity. I'm pleased that you're sitting between two, I would say, pretty awesome female CEOs right now. So as someone who does what I can to help that pipeline, I just thank you. I think it's not just the ups and downs in the economic cycles. It's what Karna said, that as work changes, and we can all agree that work is changing, work integrated learning needs to change too, right? And absolutely structured work experiences like internships and co-ops still have a very valuable role. But we know, and I think these types of co-created experiences for students will provide that flexibility, that responsiveness, that adaptability to any external fluctuation or factor, whether it be a recession or the needs of a small employer. They just can't facilitate, for any number of reasons, a structured 4-month term, but they could really benefit from interdisciplinary team, not unlike what you're talking about, Graham, with PwC, of students to come in and help market or launch a new product, for example. And that's the type of thing that we're trying to understand better, so that when we go to create the partnership opportunities for employers, that we can really go to them with a toolkit and say, these are the types of experiences we know provide value for students. They have these attributes which make them quality. And what is it that fits with what you need right now? And what is it, frankly, that fits with your economic circumstances right now? And so I couldn't agree more in terms of that co-design piece. My little plug is that we have a piece of research coming out pretty soon looking at the value of and the impact of these micro will opportunities. We learned a lot from our partners during the pandemic who had to pivot and figure out how to still provide quality experiences that were, you know, really non-traditional, and have learned a ton from that. And so we're excited about that. But my core message is those types of things where industry can help lead the way on what they need and what they want, as long as the institutions are still at the table to know that they're providing the right value for students, is just a win for everyone. Great,
thanks, Val. Angela, maybe if I can turn back to you. So Technation's obviously got a very keen interest in developing next-gen talent. I think part of the challenge for organizations is to understand what programs are out there that are available to support them. And Technation's involved in developing or facilitating one program and developing another labor market tool that sounds pretty exciting, and I'd like you to talk a bit about it. But first is there's a program that the Government of Canada runs called Canada's Student Work Placement Program. And you know, it would be helpful, I think, for people to understand how that program operates. But also, you've recently developed at Technation a tool called Career Finder. And again, would be great to hear you talk a little bit about how Career Finder works, how it helps students access opportunities in the tech industry, and how it differs from other tools or other resources that might already be out there.
Yeah, so I'm going to start with Career Ready.
Okay.
And in a couple of reasons why. And I agree with Karna in terms of the perception perhaps of some of these programs being a bit transactional. I would say some of the mechanics make it transactional in terms of interns and co-ops. You're given 4 months or possibly an 8-month extension. But in terms of what we've been able to do with Career Ready, I think we've been able to break the boundaries around integrating co-ops into some pretty powerful experiential learning programs. So you heard me mention earlier that we've moved well over 25,000 students through programs in the last number of years. Those programs that we've offered have included some pretty out of the box, what I would call will or experiential learning. And I thought it would be really good to paint a picture for all of you of what some of the examples of what we've been able to do and what Brett's team has been able to do with some of our students. So first of all, I think one of the biggest goals our team has had is to really drive that mandate around BIPOC. And as I said earlier, we were able to place thousands of students. 30% of our 25,000 were fit in that BIPOC category. So there's a lot of work behind the scenes to do that. So I'll give you an example of one out of the box example. And this is a woman economist studying in university. She was placed in and I'm sure you guys are pretty in tune with the world of crypto and what's going on with FTX right now. And anyways, we have an amazing company in Canada, one of our members, who's the platform for a Bitcoin mining. They're Bitcoin miners. She was placed in a Bitcoin mining company, blockchain, fintech, you name it, as an economist. And she did so well that the CEO of that company actually put out a video for our program. So that was, gets back to what Alexandre's talking about, that work-life experience beyond the schooling and that program. Another great example is a linguistic anthropologist who our team placed into a this makes a lot of sense, a software translation company. So again, there's more tech adjacent studying, anthropology, linguistics, but huge experience in the world of software and language and what happens with all of that. I think that's absolutely, like, this is stuff that we couldn't make up. It works out so well. And then the last one I want to share, or in fact, there's two more. We also do challenges. So it's not just about placing students in jobs. Our team also develops partnerships. So one of the partnerships we developed, and I'm going to say that the Concordia student actually won, was a partnership with
Can you repeat that?
I will repeat it. I will when I tell you what it's all about. So we partnered with the Canadian Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce, and the goal was to drive challenges in the tech industry, come up with some kind of solution that would make the world a better place, leveraging the world of the LGBTQ plus culture in schools. And so one of the students from Concordia, who did win, Graham, developed an app that was focused on waste management in food. And he worked in partnership with grocery stores, and the app built an app that actually helped people look in their fridge, see what's dying in there, and come up with recipes, but also drive some procurement strategy. So again, that was a Concordia student that won that. But what a phenomenal partnership. And this is not about sitting in an office, right? You are learning skills that's actually coming up with a strategy. Last but not least, another one with a health organization, Ticket Health, partnering with the Indigenous community, and they wanted to build something in the mental health space. And so two Indigenous women developed an augmented reality experience, and people could put on the headset and actually walk around in nature, and it would pop up plants and explain Indigenous culture behind those plants and traditional medicine. So all that to say, I think we're actually getting there in terms of breaking the boundaries around the experiences. The last piece of it, can I keep going on about the career?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I'll talk about the LMI. So the one last thing that Graham was talking about is the career finder application we have. Most of us exist in a world of old data or research, or here's what history is saying, or the data is telling us. So we have a platform that was built by one of our partners. They're Quantum Labor Market Analytics company. And so we have data now, basically data scraping of tens of thousands of databases out there in the world of jobs. What jobs are out there right now? So what does that produce? A real-time, accurate dashboard that shows heat maps around Canada. I'll use cyber as an example. How many cyber jobs are in Salt Spring Island? Like any corner of the country. How many jobs are there? How many jobs are vacant? What the skills are, not just today, what are the emerging skills that we say from this real-time experience? Why is this important? Because right now, skills they have a shelf life of about 2.5 years, and then they're obsolete in the world of tech, in the world of AI. So that means we're in a world of fluid education. You have to keep learning. So if you want to look at a career pathway as a student or an upskiller, whatever, you need to know not just what do I have today, but what's happening tomorrow in these jobs. So this platform is one of a kind in Canada. It can be used by HR leaders to look today, what thousands of jobs are out there, what's trending in other companies or industries. It can be used by students, it can be used by industry leaders, and that's a phenomenal tool that we've been able to provide Canada in partnership with some of our members.
That's fantastic. So remember the name of that, it's Career Finder.
It is.
And just listening to you talk about that, Angela, I'm thinking, back to the days when Karna and I were licking envelopes on 40 or 50 job applications. It said the job placement market, or the identification of what jobs are available. It's changed a little bit since then. There's one other point about this conversation that I want to introduce, and then maybe we can throw things open for questions from the audience. But Alexandra, I want to come back to you because we're in Canada, and part of the beauty of being in Canada is the political context in which we exist, where we have a federal government and a provincial government whose choreography isn't always perfect around certain issues. We know that in terms of the employment market, you know, both the federal government and all provincial governments are committed to trying to address talent needs. One of the tools that's been put in place by the federal government is the Student Work Placement Program, and it's a good example, I think, of an initiative that is designed in a way that's intended to respect federal and provincial jurisdictions, because the program essentially offers businesses, or encourages businesses to offer more internships, and therefore invests on the employer side of the equation by giving wage subsidies to employers to offset their risk. Can you talk a little bit about how in the Quebec case, your members have benefited from the investments that the federal government has made, and how that complementarity works between federal programs on the one hand and Quebec-based programs on the other?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Well, it's real that the federal government has been a real leader for developing internship. The provincial government are not in this business actually right now. They are on another side, and I'll talk about it later. But one of the good thing of the student work placement program has been expressed with the pandemic. Employers were closing and they were restructuring, and so one thing that had to be done is to make sure that students don't pay the fees of the pandemic, and that's been a great thing that have been done by the federal government to bonify this program, to ensure that the students will continue to have these opportunities. So that's been a terrific, they've made a terrific job with it. One of the things that Quebec employers benefit from this program is before the program, 80% or more of the internship being made were made in bigger employers. Right. Okay, SMEs don't have the keys, don't have the contact to reach out to the educational institution, so they never are the one that are on the top of the list of the students when it's time to choose an internship. So having a partnership with Technation, Be Her, with FCCQ, it's something that we are putting forward. Is all the SMEs opportunities for the students, because 50% of the students after school will go work in SMEs. Mm-hmm. So if you want to give them good work integrated experience, we need that some of them will be in SMEs too. So that's one of the key benefits of this program. I think it's to diversify the internship opportunities. Now for the government, the Quebec program, they getting a small step forward, the internship and experiential learning right now, but for a couple of years now they've developed the COUD program. You know, it's the programme de formation de courte durée axé sur les stages. Sorry, there's no English word for this program. So so they help in
short-term internships, I think, is a short way of putting it.
Yeah, a small program, that also. So 50% of the program length is being made in company. So if you're having a 2 years program, at least 1 year of this program need to be internship or on the workplace learning. So that's a great thing. That's something we need to implement more. So so there is a 20 million per year put by the provincial government. Yeah, you'll say all the money is coming from the EI system anyway, but it's being put by the provincial government so that to implement these COUD program. So it's the way the Quebec tend to implement the German dual system. Okay, that's one way to get to make employers learning institution as the same way as schools are actually in partnership effectively. So and one thing that is coming in the coming months is the rebuilding of the professional certification in Quebec. So that more and more of the learning is made on the workplace, so they know, so to ensure that the right skills and to be more flexible on what the students are learning. So great things to come.
Yeah, great things to come. And I really like the point you made about the SMEs, because I think sometimes they're the overlooked component in all of this. And of course, SMEs drive a huge amount of economic growth in the country. They are, as you said, major employers. But there's a fit match challenge for SMEs to learn how to work with universities, and for universities to have the reflex to be thinking about the SME sector when they're trying to place students. I want to throw the panel open for questions from the audience right now. So if you have questions either here live in the room, please put up your hand and we'll get a microphone to you, or if there are questions online, put them in the chat and we'll work with them there. Don't be shy. I have more questions, but I think we'd love to hear from you. Yes.
We work with, can you hear me? Yeah. We work with another sector. You've got AI and cyber, obviously, that are very important, but I work with biotechnology and biomanufacturing and engineering platforms as well in terms of training students. And that's been identified very strongly, especially over the pandemic, as a piece where there's a huge gap in skills and talent in this country and elsewhere as well. So there's a couple of points. One, when you've got 50,000 students in a university or dozens of students in a few departments, you can't put them all in internship and co-op placements, just logistically, it's a nightmare. Second is collaborative work, and a lot of the teams and the work that students will be doing in emerging technologies and a changing world have to be collaborative, and that includes engineers, and it includes life scientists, but it also includes business and startup knowledge. And so one of the things we try to do is contextualize applied work and research in terms of understanding regulatory environments, IP and patents, communication of value. So how do we integrate something like that? Not for a few internship students who tend to be, the ones who are looking for co-ops, the creme de la creme, who are very motivated. How do we integrate this into an academic system that reaches a much larger group of students and brings them into sort of different industry-facing challenges, and allows them to get that experience and that context in the course of their academic program with maybe, less money but more impact across a larger cohort of students? Any ideas? I mean, that's the kind of framework we're trying to develop, but it's challenging.
Great question. Who wants to take a first stab? All right, Karna, and then Angela. Yeah, okay.
So I think the point you made is very valid, and this is where my personal belief is as you design, the universities have a big role to play, because there is a natural tension between the the industry, because they're optimizing on certain things, and students want to experiment different things because they don't know exactly what they want to do as they grow up, right? So they want to meander through different types of jobs. So from a designing point of view, universities play a very significant role in meeting those objectives. The second piece is the specific design programs that are big companies are taking, or even large mediums are taking. You're right, there are few students who will go there. But I think the university could be a place where SMEs, or especially the micro businesses, could come for problem solving. Because I'll give you the perspective from the business side and where the universities could potentially help. From the business side, if somebody comes to me with an idea, my first question is, what problem are you trying to solve? Just because you have a good idea doesn't mean somebody's going to pay for it. So if you're trying to commercialize, we need to know what problem are you solving. Once they get past that, they need some help. So universities could be the common where they can come look for some specific support. They can look for some support on resources. So the learning takes place between the student and they can solving for a problem. The business also benefits. You could provide that platform, either physically or virtually to attract both sides. They need to kind of work towards. Because my fear is, as you go through these things, we would always try to channel the youth in a certain specific direction. It'll fail. If 35, 40 years of work experience, if I have something to say, if you try to channel the youth in a very specific, this is the way you're going to go, it's not going to happen. So that train has already left the station. So you need to allow them to meander and figure out what they want to do, how they want to work, what is their value, what is their interest. To give you a personal life example, most people think I'm an engineer because I always ran technology companies, both in US and Canada, public companies. I'm a finance guy by design. So the university taught me to be an accountant. So my MBA was in finance and marketing, but my job was running R&D and engineering and software companies, here and internationally. So you have to kind of give in my case, it happened through work, but I'm saying these universities could play a massive role here, value-added role to help to solve some of the things you're creating, is create that common space, as they call the common, to meet and see what works for both sides. Hope that answers part of your question.
Thanks, Karna. Angela?
Well, and I might just take what Karna said conceptually and maybe throw out an idea. And it starts with Graham. So a couple of things. One, I think, so you're talking about how do we force multiply these 15,000 students in co-design between industry and academia. So I think, first of all, it's really important. This discussion has elevated, and we're going to be working and brainstorming tomorrow with Nadia here at Concordia to talk about how do we create some kind of acceleration between the world of academia and studying and getting students catapulted into some of these spaces. So we have the will and the interest right now. In terms of force multiplier, there's organizations or cohesive units out there. For instance, I'm on the board of NGen. That's a global innovation cluster funded by the government. They have thousands of companies in advanced manufacturing, biotechnology, robotics, AI, you name it, all in the spaces you're describing, all scale-ups and SMEs just commercialized, not even pre-commercial. These are perfect projects for universities to collaborate with. So I'm going to throw that on the table because you need a force multiplier. You can't chase 20,000 companies out there for 20,000 jobs, but we could go, and I can help connect those dots. But getting, if we could come up with what it is, I think defining what kind of experience these students or interns or co-ops need. There's an ecosystem in Canada that we could tap into, and you kind of have the right people around the table. So it takes what Karna was saying and putting it perhaps into a perspective.
That's great. Val, you want to add in on that?
So this might be super like crass and brass tacks here, but like my honest answer would be more marketing. We know when we talk to employers all over the country, it's still, and it's crazy to people up here and it's crazy to people there and hopefully out there, that there are still companies that are like, sorry, what? A student can help me with this problem. And so I think for us to not take for granted that is a concept that is I hope, and we hope that will soon be the case. But, there's, I think, an opportunity for some promotion and marketing around that idea.
Oh, okay. Little diversion here for us.
Pay no attention to the man behind the door there. Yeah.
Did you lose your train of thought?
So a little bit, but the other thing, so just like, and when we did some work in the early days about the absorptive capacity of companies to take on students, based on some data that existed in Finland and in the UK, we were shocked about the capacity that does exist to take in thousands and thousands of students, and it's just that a lot of companies didn't know, and then don't know how. And so I think that then having the cohesive groups who can make that easier for them and make it a smooth pathway from school into those opportunities would be great.
Yeah, yeah. There's a huge communications challenge around this, right? About what's available, about what's needed. There's no getting around that. Other questions in the room? And if not, I have a quick comment. I'm just going to read a quick comment from the chat and then go back to questions. So this is from one of our faculty members in the John Molson School of Business, Steve Applebaum, who's saying, if I'm reading it correctly, to compensate for the difficult task of juggling internships and co-op experiences, we as professors can help out with our assignments to integrate both. So in his MBA course in organizational behavior, he has SWAT teams contact local organizations who have managerial programs, and the students go in teams to identify those programs, analyze the data, and finally arrive at solutions. And then in many cases, the employers get so invested in that process that they want to be there for the final presentation. So that's an example of how, the university can go out and try proactively to identify what some of those problems are. Now, I saw a couple of hands go up here, and I have no idea who was first. So go for it. Okay. And I think we have probably time for 2 more questions. How am I doing on time?
So my name is Nick Salter. I'm the executive director of the Provincial Employment Roundtable. So we're a group that works for the employability of English speakers in Quebec. Our research shows that English speakers in Quebec have a 2% higher unemployment rate than the Francophone majority and earn $2,800 less in terms of median after-tax income. That's despite similar educational levels as Francophones. So when we think about experiential learning, it's quite an exciting opportunity in the Quebec context, for particularly when we have graduates, high-level graduates like those are emerging from Concordia, who largely have good English-speaking skills, but have to integrate into largely French workplaces in Quebec. So it's an opportunity then for them to learn the French language, perhaps perfect their French language or professional French skills, but also to provide their employers potentially with English skills and help them connect with the global marketplace. So I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on that, about that impact, about that potential, or about how we could be doing that better.
Throw that one open.
Wow, yeah, we already talked about it a couple of months ago, yeah. But yeah, there's when we are talking about diversity in Quebec, rarely we are talking about Anglophone. It's rarely on our scope. We are talking about immigrants a lot right now, still now, yeah. But rarely we're looking at the scope of the language because, Francophone, the Francophone things. So, the internship are a great way to demonstrate that. Yeah, I know I'm speaking English, but I can talk French too. So we are okay to give the opportunity to immigrants to learn French on the workplace, but we are less tolerant to give the same opportunity to Anglophone. So we have work to do. We have sensibilization to do. It's real. We have something to talk about it, and we need people like you to talk about it and on open space, because there's a real struggle over here, and we need to address it. But we are looking over here with the other diversity, but it's been a long time that we are talking less about the Anglophone problem. Not that the Anglophone are a problem. You're listening and what I'm saying. So.
Yeah. and I think there's a role here for universities as well. So we're a Quebec university that happens to teach in English, and I think one of the things we would love to do is work with the Quebec government to provide more language training opportunities for students, whether they happen not to be bilingual Anglophones or whether they're students coming from elsewhere. So it's a sort of aidez-nous à vous aider challenge here. We're committed to the success of the Francophone culture of Quebec, and we're supportive of Anglophone culture as well. How can we work together with government? How can we work together with employers to create a different set of training conditions so that students who aren't linguistically proficient can achieve that level, that they can take on an internship? And what better place is there to really perfect your linguistic skills than in a work environment? So I think there's a role for universities as well in that. Now you had a question, and I'm going to give you the last question of the day because I think we're up against the clock.
Hi, my name is Megan Marcoux, and I work as Concordia's project lead for the Future Skills Innovation Network. And one of the programs that I've had the opportunity to work on in this role is a program that's career readiness for students specifically studying in the humanities. And the program includes an internship component. And my colleague, Claire, who's here today, is working as our placement coordinator. And one of the real challenges that we're facing is around the SMEs and nonprofit organizations who are often really interested in hiring students who have these humanities degree skill sets, but it's a funding issue. SWIP, the Student Work Placement Program, is something we have access to, but it too has barriers. For these smaller employers, they need to, foot the bill up front, even though there is a wage subsidy, but these are barriers. So, we're trying to brainstorm, in what ways we can provide these opportunities to students and support these employers to be able to hire our students. And just curious if there are any thoughts or ideas on what can be done.
I'm just going to throw one quick thing out. Meet Brett, sitting to your right. He actually has placed many students that from tech adjacent worlds like humanities, like social sciences, linguistics, you name it, and into thousands of small, medium enterprises and scale up. So I feel like you guys could meet and probably brainstorm a great strategy around that.
And it's funny because when you said the tech adjacent, that's something that we really see is these students have skill sets that are very compatible to be working in startups and with tech. There's just the challenge in getting them into these opportunities. So
it's the ecosystem that might help match, right?
Alexandre?
Well, you can talk to your neighbor, but you can also talk to me. No, we're colleagues, it's okay. But one of the facts is, yes, sometimes for SMEs, spending it forward is difficult. And one of the things that we are doing at the FCCQ is that we are giving 50% of the incentive upfront so that they can hire it right now. So that's maybe something that can be made to facilitate this thing.
I wish we could go on. I know we could go on, but unfortunately we got to bring a close to this. Maybe I'm just going to pick up on the last question because we had before Concordia could make the public announcement that we wanted students in every program to have the opportunity for work integrated learning. One of the things we had to figure out.
Quiet time, get out! We know what they're all about! Cuts! Job losses! Money!
Intervention. I want to take a moment to thank all of our panelists for making the time to be here today for what was really a great conversation. And I want to ask you to join me in thanking them for a moment, but first I also want to thank the audience and the people who joined us online for being part of this as well. So thank you to Alexandra, to Val, to Angela, to Karna for what was really a stimulating conversation. I think we have a lot to take away from it and lots of things to think about how we can work together successfully in the future. So thank you all. Well.
The dramatic ending is good.
Jeez. It's ironic. The last time we did this, we had just finished and the fire alarm went off.
Hi, folks in the Zoom. I'm just gonna thank you so much for joining us in this space. We're closing up here. We had an interruption with the protest coming through right at the end, so thanks for your patience. I'm sure you didn't know what was going on. We are reminding you that we did live stream this conversation to YouTube, so feel free to revisit that or share with your colleagues in due course. You can find it at Concordia University's Fourth Space on YouTube. All right, folks, we're going to close up now and wish you a great day. Until next time, bye everyone.